Continuing from the previous episode 492. Chapter 1421. Entering the Ancient Tree. Bang. After being struck by so many frightening and vicious attacks, the head of the Ban Sheng puppet with its many cracks immediately burst apart. Pale flesh and bones erupted from it. Crack crack. After its head exploded, the Ban Sheng puppet slowly stiffened with its hand in the air before an unusual ripple spread from its broken neck. The unusual ripple then turned into nothing as it quickly disappeared. With the disappearance of this energy, the body of the Ban Sheng puppet suddenly became older at a rate visible to the naked eye. Finally, it transformed into dust that scattered. Hu! A golden light surged as Xiao Yan's body quickly shrank. He returned to his original size in the blink of an eye. He wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead and glanced at the situation to his side. With the exception of Xiao Yan and Xuan, everyone else had sustained some injuries. Even someone as strong as Jiyu Qingyang had been injured by a palm strike while he had been exchanging blows with the Ban Sheng puppet. It was fortunate that his Do Qi was powerful, otherwise, he would have sustained a serious injury. This thing was too difficult to deal with. Xiao Yan flicked his finger. Numerous medicinal pills shot out of his storage ring. They were stopped in front of everyone before entering their mouths. "Everyone, please rest for a while. I will stand guard," Xiao Yan spoke in a deep voice. No one objected to Xiao Yan's words. All of them swallowed the medicinal pills and quickly sat down. They made full use of this time to quickly enter their training states. They needed to ensure that their Do Qi was maintained at peak condition in this place that was filled with danger. Only then would they be able to retain their little lives. "Xiao Yan Gege, do we need to intervene?" Xuan walked to Xiao Yan's side. Her pretty eyes looked at the other battlegrounds as she softly asked. Those other battlegrounds were not proceeding very smoothly. Even Hall of Soul's expert from Han Yu's group had his heart shattered by the Ban Sheng puppet. He ended up dying, but the strength of that group was still quite high. Thus, they were firmly able to suppress the Ban Sheng puppet. From the looks of it, victory was only a matter of time. The group from the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe had also suffered some injuries and deaths, but they were not serious and were still within the acceptable region. They had also managed to slow that Ban Sheng puppet. Compared to them, the last two battles appeared a little too miserable and intense. The four groups had begun an all-out struggle in the face of death. Although their strengths were quite impressive, there was no cooperation between them. Hence, a couple of Dozun experts had died in the hands of the Ban Sheng puppets. Those four groups had suffered the most serious casualties. It is not necessary. All we need to do is take care of ourselves. Xiao Yan's eyes flickered as he shook his head. It was not the time to show kindness. All of these people were competitors. After they finished off these Ban Sheng puppets, these people might secretly attack those who had been their allies earlier. Hence, it was best not to be a busybody. If any accidents were to occur and a Ban Sheng puppet went out of control, it would be too troublesome to deal with the fallout. Xiao Yan had gained an understanding of these so-called Ban Sheng puppets. Although these puppets were called Ban Sheng, their true fighting strength was far inferior than a genuine Ban Sheng. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Xiao Yan's group to kill it without suffering any casualties. Xuan nodded. She also understood his logic. If they were to intervene and lend a hand now, these people might end up launching a sneak attack later on. It was not the time to be merciful. Is that the legendary Bodhisattva heart? Xiao Yan once again glanced at the battlegrounds around him. After which, his eyes shifted to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Circular light rays spread from the body of the tree 1,000 feet from the ground. The light was filled with an extremely shocking life force. This Bodhisattva ancient tree is even stranger than I had expected. These Ban Sheng puppets were definitely genuine Ban Shengs when they were alive, but even they had ended up becoming puppets. Even they were not able to deal with this Bodhisattva ancient tree. Xiao Yan's eyes stared at the light as these thoughts flew across his heart. These Ban Sheng puppets were not the things that would give one a headache. Instead, the most troublesome thing was the Bodhisattva ancient tree itself because no one knew what kind of unusual tricks it hid. Looks like we must be even more careful this time around. Otherwise, we won't obtain the treasure and we might end up losing our lives. Bang! A deep and muffled sound was suddenly emitted from the distance while thoughts were lingering in Xiao Yan's heart. When he turned around, he coincidentally saw the expressionless Han Yu shatter the head of his ancestor with a punch. Han Yu deeply exhaled when his punch shattered the head of the Ban Sheng puppet. After which, he lifted his head. His eyes looked at Xiaoyan as a warm and friendly smile quickly surfaced on his originally expressionless face, causing Xiaoyan to coldly smile. Was this person performing a face-changing act? After Han Yu's group finished off the puppet, he quickly made his group sit down and recover their do qi. Clearly, they were also exhausted from the big battle earlier. Around 10 minutes after Han Yu's group was victorious, the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe's battle was finally concluded. After killing around 3 Heaven Demon Phoenix experts, the Ban Sheng puppet's head burst apart after it let an opportunity appear. Damn thing! Zhu Feng's expression was gloomy as he ruthlessly kicked the corpse of the puppet away. They had sacrificed 3 powerful Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe elders in order to finish this thing off. This price could not be considered small. Zhu Feng inhaled a deep breath of air and suppressed the fury in his heart. He once again calmed down as he waved his hand and told his group to sit on the ground. He swallowed a medicinal pill and quickly began to recover his do qi. The 3 groups had finished off their Ban Sheng puppets before the rest, but none of them went to aid the remaining 2 battles. Instead, they chose to simply observe with cold eyes by the side. Clearly, none of them treated the others as true allies. Ah! An elite Do Zun was forcefully torn into 2 as everyone coldly watched from the side. Blood scattered down and drenched the Ban Sheng puppet. At the same time, 15 experts, whose eyes had turned a little red, unleashed a powerful wind at almost the same time, and those winds ruthlessly struck the head of the Ban Sheng puppet. Bang! Against such a number of attacks, the body of the Ban Sheng puppet shook as its head burst apart. The ripple from the blast struck the dozen-plus experts nearby and caused the blood to churn within their bodies. A mouthful of fresh blood was involuntarily spat out. They had truly suffered a bloody loss in order to kill this Ban Sheng puppet. After this battle ended, the last battle continued for a couple more minutes before the final Ban Sheng puppet was eventually killed. The people fighting the last puppet used a method of risking their lives to make an attack, sacrificing 5 people in the process. The last group of people lay weakly on the ground after the Ban Sheng puppet's head had been blasted apart. They did not even wish to move a finger. Once the final Ban Sheng puppet was turned into dust, Xiaoyan's group, which had rested for a period of time, slowly opened their eyes. Their auras had nearly fully recovered with the aid of the medicinal pill. Xiaoyan's eyes shifted to the Bodhisattva ancient tree after seeing that everyone in his group had finished recuperating. A moment later, he said, "The subsequent situations will definitely be many times more dangerous. Therefore, I suggest those whose strength has not reached the 6th star of the Do Zun class remain here and cease advancing further." Everyone hesitated after hearing Xiaoyan's suggestion. They soon nodded since Ban Sheng puppets had appeared. No one could know if there were even more dangerous trials ahead. If one's strength did not reach the mark, one would be seeking death by heading in. "Sect Chief, in that case, we will accompany Yanren and remain here. You should accompany the Junior Pavilion Chief." The few flower sect elders looked at each other and spoke. Although they were aware that they were not blessed enough to enjoy the benefits of the ancient tree, they still wished for the flower sect to gain something. Currently, Yun Yun was quite strong and she had some sort of relationship with Xiaoyan. If she encountered a wonderful opportunity, she would gain endless benefits. In that case, you should be careful. Yun Yun hesitated for a moment before nodding. She did not have any hope to snatch for a treasure. However, she would feel a little worried in her heart if she allowed Xiaoyan's group to continue on even though she was aware that Xiaoyan was stronger than her. Xiaoyan nodded, after which, his eyes landed on the Bodhisattva ancient tree's large body. The true Bodhisattva heart was definitely hidden inside. "Let's go." Xiaoyan softly exhaled. The pores on his body tensed up at this moment. He waved his hand gently and took the lead to stand up. After which, he slowly walked to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Behind him, Xuan Er's group, which had been waiting solemnly, followed him with grave and cautious faces. We should also get moving. Han Yu's and Zhu Feng's group could not remain still after seeing Xiaoyan's group start to approach the tree. They could not bother to rest as they waved their hands and led their people to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. The few fragmented groups further behind also clenched their teeth upon seeing people approach the tree. They forcefully climbed up from the ground. They had already paid a great price in order to come to this far. They were unwilling to simply return empty-handed. The many people hastened their steps because of the temptation of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. As they approached the Bodhisattva ancient tree, everyone's heart once again became anxious. No one knew just what tricks the Bodhisattva ancient tree contained. It was this unknown that caused one to feel terrified. Sha sha. The soft sound of feet slowly pressing against the ground was heard as everyone gradually reached the bottom of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. They stood below before lifting their heads. Only then did they realize just how enormous this ancient tree, which had survived for an unknown number of years, was. Kai, the moment everyone reached the bottom of the Bodhisattva ancient tree, a bright light suddenly erupted from the body of the tree 1,000 feet above the ground. It turned into a bright pillar that wrapped around Xiaoyan's group. This sudden scene caused everyone's heart to jump. They were just about to unleash their Do Qi when they were shocked to discover that the Do Qi within their bodies had disappeared. Swoosh! The light pillar quickly shrank while everyone was feeling shocked. It emitted a swoosh sound as it pulled back into the tree with lightning-like speed. The group of people, who had reached the bottom of the tree earlier, had vanished at the same time. Xiaoyan's group was naturally included among those who had disappeared. Nalan Yanran continued to stare at the spot where the group had strangely disappeared from. Her face immediately turned pale. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Duh. Continuing from the previous episode 493. Chapter 1422. Illusion. A white glow filled Xiaoyan's vision as he stood in a world of white light. There was not a single person beside him. Without knowing why, his memories vaguely became a little chaotic. What happened? Xiaoyan frowned and muttered to himself. A moment later, he suddenly lifted his head. There was a circular light ring a short distance from him. He hesitated for a moment before walking to the light ring. After which, he stepped into it. Although Xiaoyan had only taken an instant to step into the light ring, it felt as though decades had passed. While he was feeling lost, his body suddenly shook. Lush green grassy plains replaced the white world in front of his eyes. This is Wasteland Ancient Region? Xiaoyan muttered in a lost manner as he stared at this enormous grassland. This place left him with a feeling familiarity even with his chaotic memory. Xiaoyan's body stood in the air. His eyes looked around him and noticed that the plain was empty. The entire area was permeated with a lonely aura. It appeared as though he was the only one who existed. Roar! However, an earth-shaking roar echoed around Xiaoyan while his eyes were roaming the land. A blood-colored beast tide galloped over the horizon like a scarlet-red line. Within a couple of blinks, it had appeared within 1,000 feet of him. A stench pounced toward him. Xiaoyan knit his brow as he glanced over these ferocious beasts coming from all directions. He lifted his hand and an indescribably frightening energy created a destructive fluctuation. Following this fluctuation, all the ferocious beasts that entered a 1,000-foot radius of the fluctuation turned into dust at this moment, regardless of how strong they were. Xiaoyan was a little absent-minded as he watched over half the beast tide disappear. He immediately looked at his hand in surprise. Such a strength was so great that it could not be described. It was as though this world could collapse beneath his will if he so desired. This is the strength of a Do Sheng? Xiaoyan muttered to himself. A wild joy surged into his eyes. He had pursued such strength for many years. Was he finally in possession of it? Roar! While Xiaoyan was immersed in this strength that could destroy the world with a lift of his hand, another roar that was filled with violence rang out. Countless of ferocious beasts stared at him with wide scarlet eyes as they charged at him. He! Xiaoyan strangely laughed at the attack of the beast tide. His hand ruthlessly pressed down and 100,000-foot-long handprint immediately formed in the grassy plains. A terrifying ripple spread over the ground toward his surroundings in a circular form. Nothing in the beast tide could let out a miserable cry. The moment they touched this fluctuation, they turned into dust. An unimaginable number of ferocious beasts on the grassy plains below were completely annihilated as the palm fell. This kind of strength caused one to feel a fear that originated from within one's heart. An unusual emotion surfaced from deep within Xiaoyan's heart as he watched the 100,000-foot-long handprint appear on the ground. It caused him to involuntarily laugh at the sky. His laughter was like thunder that rumbled across the land. He had finally obtained such strength. Hall of Souls, Hun Clan, I intend to completely destroy all of you. A powerful murderous desire suddenly rose within Xiaoyan's heart as his loud laughter reverberated. The sky behind him suddenly became distorted and a group of human figures was spat out in a miserable manner. Han Yu? Xiaoyan was slightly startled as he looked at the group that had just appeared in the sky. He spat out the name of a man in his thoughts. A red glow flashed across his eyes as his hand ruthlessly grabbed at that group. Quick run! Han Yu's expression changed upon seeing Xiaoyan. He hurriedly turned around and fled, but his body had just turned when he discovered that the space around them had been completely sealed. Before the dou qi within his body could even surge, space itself seemed to have collapsed. A bang sounded as the space around them turned into a black hole, forcefully grinding Han Yu's group into bloody flesh. This strength is enough for me to take revenge. Xiaoyan randomly tossed the bloody flesh aside. A cold smile surfaced on his face. He turned around, stepped through empty space, and hurried out of the ancient wasteland region. Any ferocious beasts that appeared within 10,000 feet of him was quickly pressed into a bloody and blurry ball of flesh by the pressure that spread across the sky. A ray of light flashed across the azure sky. Many low and deep explosions sounded wherever this light passed. Blood flowed like a river. The speed of this ray of light was extremely fast. Within less than 10 minutes, it had crossed the spacious ancient wasteland region and appeared on its border. Blood flowed like a river during this journey and the blood-red color in Xiaoyan's eyes had become denser. However, he did not appear to have sensed the change. Instead, the smile on his face became stranger. Swoosh! A ray of light flashed and appeared on a mountain at the edge of the ancient wasteland region. Xiaoyan's body appeared. At this moment, both of his eyes were a blood red. A dense killing desire caused Xiaoyan's expression to become a little distorted. He looked at a town in the distance. It was the wasteland town. An expression of loss once again appeared on his distorted face when he saw this town. He seemed to vaguely detect that something was amiss, but he could tell what was wrong because of the chaotic memories in his mind. Buzz! After being at momentary loss, Xiaoyan once again lifted his foot and attempted to fly into the distance. However, he had just lifted his foot when a slight buzzing sound was emitted from his storage ring and a cool air surged out of it. This air moved along Xiaoyan's arm and entered his head. Xiaoyan's body violently trembled when this clear, cool air entered him. The chaotic memories in his mind and some unknown extra thing immediately disappeared. The bloody redness in Xiaoyan's eyes also began to disappear with these things. The moment the final tendril of blood red disappeared, Xiaoyan's expression became gloomy. He slowly lifted his head and looked at the empty space in front of him. He said, "It is indeed worthy of being the Bodhisattva ancient tree since it is able to create such a real illusion. Moreover, those who are in it cannot detect it. Although this strength is powerful and is something that I have sought my whole life, it is unfortunately an illusion." Xiaoyan gently lifted a fist and opened it apart. A jade green bead quietly lay in his hand. It was the Bodhisattva seed that Xiaoyan had obtained back then. If not for this seed's aid in expelling that obscure thing in his mind, he would have continued to sink into this life-like illusion. He finally understood why those Bansheng puppets existed. Those people had also been immersed in an illusion created by the Bodhisattva ancient tree and ended up losing their souls, turning into a walking corpse. The moment Xiaoyan revealed the Bodhisattva seed, the entire sky began to distort. Finally, the scene emitted a bang and burst apart like a shattered mirror. Xiaoyan was absent-minded when this place burst apart. His eyesight blurred. By the time he recovered, he discovered that he was in a space that was filled with a jade-green color. An ancient tree over 100 feet tall was stood as though it had existed since ancient times. This tree was an emerald green, appearing as though it had been carved from top-quality emerald. It emitted a shocking life force. This tree was the same as that 10,000-foot-tall Bodhisattva ancient tree in the outside world, but it appeared to have shrunk a countless number of times. Xiaoyan's eyes were gloomy as he looked at this small Bodhisattva ancient tree in front of him. That illusion, which had trapped him earlier, had definitely been created by this thing. The emerald green Bodhisattva ancient tree suddenly trembled as Xiaoyan observed it. Many light clusters flew out of it and stopped in front of Xiaoyan. These light clusters changed and various scenes were emitted from them. Xiaoyan's eyes swept over them and his expression quickly changed. The people inside were Xuan Han Yu, Zhu Feng, and the others who had entered the Bodhisattva ancient tree with him earlier. At this moment, All of them were trapped in their own illusion. What exactly are you planning to do? Xiao Yan furiously cried out. A heavenly flame quickly surged out of his body. This Bodhisattva ancient tree was too strong. That lifelike illusion could not be differentiated between real or fake. From the looks of those Ban Sheng puppets earlier, Xiao Yan's group was clearly not the first to have suffered this fate. The Bodhisattva ancient tree shook once again when it heard Xiao Yan's furious cry. A light cluster appeared. There was 100,000-foot tall Bodhisattva ancient tree within the light cluster, but Xiao Yan's eyes did not focus on the ancient tree. Instead, they focused on the spot in front of the tree where a black-clothed human was standing in the air. An aura that seemed to reign supreme spread from the body of this person. Under this aura, even the 100,000-foot tall Bodhisattva ancient tree appeared quite small. Do-di. Xiao Yan's eyes contained a dense shock. He stared intently at the black-clothed back. Although it was only an image, its aura still caused Xiao Yan's soul to tremble. This kind of feeling, who else could possess it other than an elite Do-di, which merely existed in ancient legends? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 494. Chapter 1423. Negative emotions of a Do-di. The black figure in the light cluster stood in front of the 100,000-foot tall Bodhisattva ancient tree. Suddenly, this figure began to attack the Bodhisattva ancient tree. The Bodhisattva ancient tree retaliated by slowly emitting wave after wave of monstrous energy. This entire sky crumbled because of this frightening exchange. Xiao Yan was startled as he watched the battle within the light cluster. He found it hard to believe that the Bodhisattva ancient tree had once battled with an elite Do-di. The figure within the cluster of light began to speed up before halting. Then the black figure was ruthlessly struck by a destructive force that erupted from outside the area visible within the cluster of light. The black figure's body and the entire area around it was blasted into smithereens. Hiss! Xiao Yan's heart violently pounded as he looked at that black figure, who had been blasted until nothing remained. That sudden attack from earlier had been unleashed by an elite Do-di, who was not weaker than the black-clothed Do-di. With the combined effort of the Bodhisattva ancient tree and another mysterious Do-di, that black-clothed Do-di was completely destroyed. Two Do-di. The corner of Xiao Yan's eyes involuntarily twitched. He was able to witness two of these experts who only existed in legends. Although they were merely images, the aura from an ultimate expert caused Xiao Yan's soul to tremble. The image in the light cluster did not halt with the fall of the black-clothed Do-di. Traces of black air suddenly appeared. The air quickly charged into the Bodhisattva ancient tree the moment it appeared. With the entry of this airflow, the refreshing aura that radiated from the Bodhisattva ancient tree gained an obscure chill. Xiao Yan was startled as he watched the aura change. He fell deep into thought. The Bodhisattva ancient tree after the black aura entered it seemed to give off the same feeling as the Bodhisattva ancient tree he saw in the wasteland ancient region. Puff! The light slowly became dim before it agglomerated into an invisible matter that charged into Xiao Yan's head with lightning-like speed. Finally, this light turned into unusual information that disseminated apart. Xiao Yan shut his eyes and digested this unusual information flow. It was a long while later before he slowly opened his eyes as a sense of comprehension appeared in them. He had gained much knowledge from this information. The Bodhisattva ancient tree in front of him had existed for an unknown period of time, but one thing was certain, it had existed since prehistoric times. The thing that caused Xiao Yan to be surprised was that despite countless years of existence, it did not evolve and form its own intelligence. Perhaps it was because it had existed for too long, resulting in an incomplete intelligence. Regardless of the reason, this Bodhisattva ancient tree was not entirely intelligent. It could only function with the basic abilities of a spiritual object, like protecting itself or retaliating. The images that came from the cluster of light earlier were from an extremely distant era. There had once been a seriously injured elite Do-di who had attempted to forcefully remove the tree spirit of the Bodhisattva ancient tree to heal his injuries, but he ended up dying to his opponent and the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Of course, that black-clothed Do-di, who had been killed, had clearly caused the Bodhisattva ancient tree to suffer a ton of damage. One could understand the damage the Bodhisattva ancient tree suffered by comparing the 100,000-foot tall in the light cluster to its 10,000-foot tall size. Even though the Bodhisattva ancient tree had paid a heavy price, it did not completely eliminate the black-clothed Do-di as one would imagine, because some of Do-di's negative emotions gathered together and invaded the Bodhisattva ancient tree the moment he was about to be killed. These so-called negative emotions gradually merged with the Bodhisattva ancient tree over a countless number of years, vaguely causing the simple spirit of the Bodhisattva ancient tree to begin to tilt to the dark and chilly side. In other words, over a long period of time, the Bodhisattva ancient tree was gradually eroded by the Do-di's negative emotions until it started to become a little evil. That illusion had been formed because of this evil. There had been an unknown number of experts who had lost themselves in the illusion over a countless number of years. If the familiar aura of Xiaoyan's Bodhisattva seed had not been emitted to wake the spirit that was deep within the Bodhisattva ancient tree, Xiaoyan would not have reached this place. If one were to describe the current Bodhisattva ancient tree in a simple way, it would be best to say that the tree's body possessed two separate spirits. One originally belonged to it while the other was created from the negative emotions of that black-clothed Do-di. The spirit created from the Do-di tilted to evil. You wish to ask me to aid you in expelling that evil spirit? Xiaoyan looked at the ancient emerald tree across from as he inquired with a thought. Wah! The ancient tree quickly began to sway when it heard Xiaoyan's words, appearing as though it was nodding. Xiaoyan was a little speechless when he saw it sway. He replied, "You really think too highly of me. Those emotions have been left behind by an elite Do-di. I am unable to remove them." Xiaoyan was indeed speaking the truth. The negative emotions of an elite Do-di had even managed to shift something as strong as the Bodhisattva ancient tree onto the path of evil. What could his strength, which had just reached the 9th star of the Do-zun class, do? He might end up bringing trouble to himself if he carelessly lured those damn negative emotions his way. He would certainly die if that happened. Wah wah! A light cluster once again appeared soon after Xiaoyan's words sounded. A wisp of flame surfaced in the cluster of light, and then a Bodhisattva seed materialized. The flame refined the Bodhisattva seed and a refreshing aura appeared. This aura finally entered the body of the ancient tree. Following the entrance of this refreshing aura, the dark chill that spread through the Bodhisattva ancient tree became a little fainter. Use the Bodhisattva seed to expel those negative emotions? Xiaoyan was startled. He glanced at the Bodhisattva seed in his hand and asked out of uncertainty. Just this one impure Bodhisattva ancient seed can help you? Wah! The ancient tree shook and numerous green lights drifted out of its body. They stopped in front of Xiaoyan. The light gradually weakened, and Xiaoyan was flabbergasted because he had discovered that these light spots were all Bodhisattva seeds. Moreover, from the crystal luster they emitted, they were clearly many times more pure than the Bodhisattva seed in his hand. 1, 2, 3, 24. Xiaoyan's eyes swept over the green light spots. The corner of his mouth involuntarily twitched. Although the Bodhisattva seed was not as frightening as the Bodhisattva heart, it was still able to increase one's chances of successfully advancing to the Do-shen class. Forget about the extremely high-quality Bodhisattva seeds. Even the impure Bodhisattva seed in his hand would be able to tempt a countless number of experts. However, over 20 of these Bodhisattva seeds, which were terribly rare in the outside world, had suddenly appeared in front of Xiaoyan at this moment. Even he felt the impulse to grab them and flee. Fortunately, Xiaoyan still retained his rational thoughts. Although this Bodhisattva ancient tree did not possess a complete spirit, all it took was only a little of its instinctive ability to easily kill him 100 times over. That lifelike illusion from earlier allowed Xiaoyan to understand just how frightening the Bodhisattva ancient tree was. It was fortunate that it did not possess a complete spirit. Otherwise, the number of experts on the Do-chi continent who could fight it did not exceed 5. Using Bodhisattva seeds to expel the negative emotions. This is really too wasteful. Xiaoyan looked at the Bodhisattva seeds suspended in front of him. Although these did not belong him, he still felt an incomparable heartache when he was asked to use his heavenly flame to refine them. Wah wah! The Bodhisattva ancient tree swayed once again while Xiaoyan was feeling his heartache. It seemed to be urging him on. Xiaoyan let out a bitter laugh upon seeing it sway. All he could do was nod. He spread his palm and a cluster of purple-brown flames with a faint whiteness curled and rose. He randomly picked up a Bodhisattva seed with his hand and threw it into the flame. The interior of the Bodhisattva seed contained an extremely powerful energy. Even with the aid of the heavenly flame, it was still quite difficult to refine it. The refinement lasted for around an hour. Only then did the Bodhisattva seed turn into a crystal-clear liquid. Another half an hour passed and the cluster of liquid transformed into a wisp of refreshing air that contained an emerald green color. This wisp of refreshing air seeped out of the flame before entering the jade-like body of the ancient tree. As this wisp of refreshing air poured into the Bodhisattva ancient tree, its body started to tremble. Soon after, an extremely faint black vapor quietly seeped out. It eventually turned into nothing and disappeared. Hu! Xiao Yan sighed in relief upon seeing the black vapor. He quickly sat down. The difficulty involved in refining the Bodhisattva ancient tree had far exceeded his expectations. Even with his current ability, it was impossible for the Do Qi within his body to continue the refinement process. I can't continue. I must rest for a moment. Xiao Yan wiped his perspiration away as he waved his hand at the Bodhisattva ancient tree and spoke. Wah wah! Seeing that Xiao Yan had ceased working, the Bodhisattva ancient tree immediately began to sway. A cluster of green light was quickly unleashed from its body. This light formed an ancient futon near the Bodhisattva ancient tree, after which, the ancient tree extended a tree branch and carried Xiao Yan to the futon. Bang! Xiao Yan's body trembled the moment it touched the ancient futon. Wave after wave of frighteningly pure energy surged into Xiao Yan's body like floodwater. At this moment, all of his pores seemed to have suddenly blasted apart as a refreshing vapor slowly seeped in from the top of Xiao Yan's head. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 495. Chapter 1424. 3 Bodhisattva Treasure, Crack, Clash. Pure energy continuously poured into Xiao Yan's body like floodwater, causing a crackling sound to be emitted from his body. Under this crazy pouring in of energy, Xiao Yan sensed the Do Qi in his body, which had been exhausted, completely recover. Moreover, the Do Qi contained within his body seemed to be a little denser than it had been earlier. What a frightening Bodhisattva ancient tree! Xiao Yan involuntarily inhaled a breath of cool air when he sensed the change in his body. The energy within this Bodhisattva ancient tree was extremely pure. It did not require any refinement before transforming into Do Qi that one could absorb. In other words, this Bodhisattva ancient tree was like an inexhaustible Do Qi fountain. As long as it was around, one would not need to worry about exhausting one's Do Qi. Of course, this was not the most frightening thing. The Bodhisattva ancient tree also seemed to contain an obscure expansionist ability. For example, the amount of Do Qi that Xiao Yan's body could store was fixed, but the Bodhisattva ancient tree was able to faintly increase this fixed capacity. In other words, the Bodhisattva ancient tree had caused the Do Qi storage in his body to expand while aiding his recovery of Do Qi. This was an extremely powerful ability. If this capacity continued to increase, the so-called Do Sheng bottleneck, otherwise known as the vast stream to cross to break through to the Do Sheng class, would slowly disappear because of this gradual expansion. Rustle. While Xiao Yan was feeling shocked because of the mighty Do Qi within his body, the Bodhisattva ancient tree once again began to sway. It emitted a rustling sound as it seemed to urge Xiao Yan to continue refining the Bodhisattva seeds. This bitter work is really worthwhile. Xiao Yan quietly praised this refinement in his heart. He no longer dared to delay any longer as he once again released his heavenly flame and another Bodhisattva seed was thrown into it. He would naturally no longer be stingy with his Do Qi, and when his Do Qi was completely exhausted, the Bodhisattva ancient tree would help him replenish it. At the same time, it would also provide him with an additional rich reward. Under the urge of these tempting benefits, the tiredness from the refinement was naturally an inconsequential matter. The body of the current Xiao Yan was filled with a drive. Xiao Yan's palm turned into a cauldron. The fierce flame emitted a frighteningly high temperature. At the same time, the Do Qi within Xiao Yan's body disappeared at a shocking speed. With the aid of the Bodhisattva ancient tree, this Do Qi fountain, he could squander without any worry. A Bodhisattva seed turned into a wisp of refreshing air because of this wild refinement. It rose from the flame and entered the emerald green tree. At the same time, a tendril of black vapor once again disappeared. Rustle. The Bodhisattva ancient tree emitted a joyous cry as it sensed the black vapor gradually disappear. It swayed its branches as a mighty and pure energy continued to pour into Xiao Yan's body. Within the blink of an eye, the tired Xiao Yan was reinvigorated. Continue. Xiao Yan involuntarily laughed when he sensed that his body had once again been filled with an even stronger Do Qi. Before the Bodhisattva ancient tree could encourage him, he had grabbed a Bodhisattva seed and continued the refinement process. The space covered in a green color was filled with a great life force. There was no exact concept of time in this place. Xiao Yan could only clearly remember that the Bodhisattva ancient tree had aided him in the recovery of his Do Qi 28 times. The first batch of Bodhisattva ancient seed had been completely refined by him, but these Bodhisattva ancient seed did not completely remove the negative emotions within the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Hence, Xiao Yan was able to retain his calmness when dozens of Bodhisattva seeds once again flew out of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. After having refined so many Bodhisattva seeds, these rare objects, which would cause any outsider to go crazy, were regarded as something ordinary by Xiao Yan. In summary, Xiao Yan was numb. However, Xiao Yan had also made relatively large gains after refining so many Bodhisattva seeds. The expended Do Qi within his body was already many times greater than what it had been earlier. This kind of refinement continued. Xiao Yan did not request to rest. Instead, the refinement had become a routine. He picked up a Bodhisattva seed and refined it. After which, a wisp of refreshing air entered the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Then, he picked up another Bodhisattva seed. This cycle repeated itself and did not stop for even a moment. This cycle continued for an unknown period of time. After a while, Xiao Yan extended his hand in an attempt to grab a Bodhisattva seed, but he only grasped empty air. It was then that he discovered that he had already refined all the Bodhisattva seeds in front of him. Xiao Yan shook his head as he grabbed at nothing. His eyes landed on the Bodhisattva ancient tree in front of him. He coincidentally managed to see a wisp of black vapor slowly seep out of the tree. It finally turned into nothing and vanished. Buzz buzz. After the disappearance of this wisp of black vapor, the emerald Bodhisattva ancient tree suddenly emitted a buzzing sound. A green light surged before many glaring green rays erupted from the tree's bodies. They spread and caused the already rich life force present to grow denser. Has it been completely removed? Xiao Yan looked at the Bodhisattva ancient tree. At this moment, the Bodhisattva ancient tree was undoubtedly a much more emerald green than before. Moreover, the dark chill that had vaguely emanated from it also disappeared. The current Bodhisattva ancient tree gave one a peaceful, divine, and intelligent feeling of mystery. Rustle, rustle. One of the ancient tree branches was slowly extended. It was like a person's hand as it rubbed Xiao Yan's head. Xiao Yan could sense a joyous emotion from that tree branch. It is good that the negative emotions have been completely removed. Xiao Yan smiled. He also patted the Bodhisattva ancient tree's branch. After which, a fatigue that originated from his soul suddenly surged, causing him to shut both of his eyes. Subsequently, his head also lowered. The exhaustion from refining the Bodhisattva seeds during this period of time was really too great. Although the Bodhisattva ancient tree had aided him in with his exhausted Do Qi, the tiredness of his soul could not be recovered as easily. Now that Xiao Yan had finally relaxed, the fatigue from his soul, which he had been suppressing, suddenly appeared. It caused Xiao Yan to descend into a slumber. Buzz buzz. An unusual sound was emitted from the Bodhisattva ancient tree when it saw Xiao Yan lower his head and descend into a slumber. An emerald light immediately erupted from within its body. The light turned into a countless number of hands that pulled at Xiao Yan's seated figure. The moment the two made contact, many ripples rose on the tree's body as Xiao Yan slowly merged with it. He became like a statue that sat at the center of the tree without moving. Soon after Xiao Yan was pulled into the Bodhisattva ancient tree, the Bodhisattva ancient tree began to swing its branches. Waves of unusual ripples spread apart and many spatial holes were torn open. Numerous miserable figures were spat out. They were surprisingly the group that had entered the Bodhisattva ancient tree with Xiao Yan. Xuaner's group was also among them. Everyone's expression changed when they suddenly appeared in this strange place. Some fear lingered on many of their faces. They now understood that everything they had experienced earlier was an illusion. What a frightening Bodhisattva ancient tree! Even those as strong as Xuaner and Han Yu were unable to retain their calmness at this moment. They recalled the illusion from earlier and involuntarily felt a cold sweat form. If not for this sudden change, they would have remained in their illusions forever. Everyone gradually recovered. Only then did they slowly withdraw the shock within their hearts and began to observe this mysterious place, which was filled with pulsating life. Bodhisattva Ancient Tree? This place was not very big. Hence, the many pairs of eyes gathered on the jade-like ancient tree at the middle. A shocked voice was involuntarily spat out from the mouths of these people. After experiencing the illusion from earlier, they were extremely terrified of this ancient tree. There was nothing more miserable and tragic than dying in an illusion. Xiaoyan Gege. The eyes of everyone present focused on the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Soon after, Xuan-Er recognized a skinny figure within the tree trunk. Her face drastically changed. Xiaoyan? The remaining people saw what she saw while Xuan-Er's expression was changing. All of their expressions quickly experienced varying degrees of alterations. Xuan-Er, don't be reckless. This is perhaps a great opportunity. Ji Qingyang grabbed Xuan-Er and reminded her in a deep voice. Xuan-Er only woke up after hearing Ji Qingyang's words. She properly recalled her memories related to this Bodhisattva ancient tree. A moment later, she began to slowly nod. Based on the records of some ancient books, the Bodhisattva ancient tree possessed 3 treasures. The first was the Bodhisattva heart, the second was the Bodhisattva seed, and the third was to comprehend the nature of the world through the Bodhisattva ancient tree. It was not difficult to comprehend the first 2 treasures. Both treasures were tangible things owned by the Bodhisattva ancient tree. However, the third was a little vague and imaginary. The Bodhisattva ancient tree was called the knowledge reincarnation tree. It was rumored to have the mysterious effect that allowed one to experience 100 reincarnation. Those who had undergone such reincarnations were rumored to be able to step into the Do D class. Although this was only a rumor, there were still a countless number of experts who had gone crazy because of this vague legend. A Do D was the ultimate level that existed only in legends. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 496. Chapter 1425. Awaken. Every pair of eyes in this life-filled space gathered on Xiaoyan, who had been embraced by the ancient tree. Their eyes were relatively hot. Those who could come to this place had naturally heard of the 3 Bodhisattva treasures. This so-called meditation under the Bodhisattva ancient tree might seem very vague and undetectable, but the potential that it could provide caused one to go crazy. How did this fellow end up gaining such an advantage first? Zhu Feng's expression was gloomy. Even with his character, he could not control the jealousy that filled his stomach. He would rather these great benefits be given to anyone but someone he disliked. The warm smile, which usually hung on Han Yu's face by the side, significantly diminished while Zhu Feng's expression was gloomy. His fingers continued to rub against each other. Clearly, the emotions in his heart were not as calm as he appeared on the surface. No one would be able to remain calm if one could gain such a great potential. Had I known earlier, I would have summoned the experts from the clan using the spatial jade token outside. At this moment, Han Yu felt regret form within his heart. If he had not been worried that the experts from the Ji clan would have intervened, he would have shattered the spatial jade token and summoned the experts from the Han clan to kill Xiaoyan the moment he broke out of the beast tide. Since Xiaoyan was with the Ji clan, Han Yu could not forcefully attack him. After all, Han Yu understood that these people from the Ji clan also possessed a spatial jade token to summon their clan's experts. If they were to end up entangled with each other outside the tree, they would only end up benefiting the rest. Only at this moment did Han Yu feel some regret in his heart, but it was too late. The space in this place was a created realm. It was not possible for a spatial ripple to be created here, so he could not summon the experts from the Han clan. Han Yu's eyes flickered. He suddenly looked at Zhu Feng. Both of them glanced at each other. They were able to detect a dark chill in the other party's eyes, and their chins were gently inclined in a manner unnoticeable to others. Bang! Han Yu and Zhu Feng suddenly moved after their chins lowered. They turned into 2 black lines and appeared under the Bodhisattva ancient tree with such swiftness that no one could react. The both of them circulated the Do Qi in their bodies as they ruthlessly attacked Xiaoyan, who had been embraced by the tree. From the looks of it, they were planning on forcefully waking Xiaoyan from his slumber. Han Yu, how dare you! Xuan-Er's group detected their destination the moment those 2 figures shot out. Their expressions drastically changed. Two handprints were swiftly formed in front of Xuan-Er by a golden flame. These two handprints quickly shot toward Han Yu and Zhu Feng. However, the both of them decided to ignore Xuan-Er's attack. Frightening Do Qi was present in their hands as they ruthlessly slammed toward the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Bang! A muffled sound was emitted when the ferocious palm winds landed on the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Before a smile could surface on Han Yu's and Zhu Feng's faces, they suddenly sensed an exceedingly terrifying force surging from the spots where their palms had landed. Grug! Shock quickly surged into Han Yu's and Zhu Feng's eyes because of this frightening retaliation force. They did not have the time to dodge before that terrifying force fearlessly charged into their bodies. All of their Do Qi defenses collapsed as both of them flew backwards like kites with their string cut. They spat out a mouthful of blood as their bodies formed an arc in the air. Everyone present was startled when they saw Han Yu and Zhu Feng being defeated in an instant. They quickly looked at the Bodhisattva ancient tree with some shock. This thing was indeed extraordinary. Who? Xuan-Er's pretty eyes stared intently at Xiao Yan in the Bodhisattva ancient tree. She only sighed in relief after seeing that he was not awoken. Her pretty icy cold eyes swung to Han Yu and Zhu Feng as a golden flame rose within them. The experts from the Han clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe were shocked after seeing Xuan-Er's eyes. They hurriedly gathered Han Yu and Zhu Feng, who had climbed to their feet. Looking at the situation, they seemed to be ready to engage in a big fight at the slightest disagreement. Xuan-Er, don't be reckless. Ji Yu Qing Yang stopped Xuan-Er. His eyes looked at Han Yu's group in an unfriendly manner. The Han clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe were clearly cooperating. It would be difficult to determine a victor if they were to engage in a bloody battle. Most importantly, the commotion would be far too great should they really fight. They would end up losing more than they gain if they wake Xiao Yan from his condition. Xuan-Er was similarly aware of Ji Yu Qing Yang's concern in her heart. Hence, she nodded and slowly withdrew her ice-cold eyes. Her eyes soon shifted to Xiao Yan seated in the tree with his eyes shut. Blah! Han Yu and Zhu Feng wiped off the trace of blood from the corner of their mouths. They looked at Xiao Yan, who continued to remain still in the tree. A dark and solemn expression appeared on their faces. It was unexpected that they were unable to wake him from his slumber even with their combined attack. Looks like the Bodhisattva ancient tree is protecting him. Just what kind of damn luck does this fellow have? Han Yu and Zhu Feng were clearly aware that the retaliation force from earlier had been unleashed by the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Otherwise, with just Xiao Yan's strength alone, it would have been impossible for him to fight against the both of them. Nevertheless, they were helpless despite being aware of this fact. After the exchange earlier, they already understood that even if they were to gather everyone here, it would be impossible for them to even damage a leaf on the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Regardless of how jealous they felt in their hearts, they could only watch because of the protection offered by the Bodhisattva ancient tree. The atmosphere of the space appeared grave after Han Yu and Zhu Feng became quiet. There were two parties that did not see eye to eye. The other groups that did not belong to the three factions did not dare to randomly intervene in such a fight. They stood far away and searched for a method to leave. This Bodhisattva ancient tree seems to have a good impression of Xiao Yan. I wonder what happened earlier. Under normal circumstances, Xiao Yan should have also fallen into an illusion. Ji Yu Qing Yang glacked at Han Yu's group before turning his head to remark to Xuan-Er. Xuan-Er slightly nodded. She said, "It seems that it is impossible to leave this place. I made an attempt earlier, but I was unable to tear open even the slightest spatial crack. I'm afraid that we can only wait for Xiao Yan Gege to awaken." Ji Yu Qing Yang nodded. He had also made an attempt. The space in this place was surprisingly firm. Even though he had used all his strength, he could not create even the tiniest spatial ripple. Even less needed to be said about tearing space. All we can do is wait. At least the life force in this place is extremely dense. It should not be much of a problem to wait for some time. Kai Lin also opened her mouth to speak at this moment. It was impossible for her to abandon Xiao Yan and leave. However, we should remain cautious of those people during this period of time. The group slowly nodded after hearing these words. Han Yu and his gang clearly possessed some ill thoughts. Even though it was only a legend, they were extremely unwilling to allow Xiao Yan experience the reincarnations and knowledge from the Bodhisattva ancient tree, especially if it allowed him to gain the potential to reach the Do D class. Given both parties' stances, it would be a great disaster for them if Xiao Yan reached that stage. The concept of time within this mysterious place was extremely blurry, but no one was able to form a spatial crack-go escape. Everyone still felt some fear because of the extremely lifelike illusion from earlier, so no one truly dared to act wildly in this place. Although it was a little boring, it was at least real. If one were stuck in that illusion again, it would be impossible to differentiate between reality and the illusion. That feeling was extremely terrifying. As time continued to flow, everyone gradually began to enter their training states. The energy in this place was filled with a great life force. It was a supplement that could nourish anyone. Moreover, if one used this energy to heal one's injuries, it would even be able to get rid of hidden injuries within one's body. Hence, everyone began to enter a training state while they waited. All of them benefited during this period of time. Of course, Xu and Er's group had naturally allocated some people to monitor Han Yu's group while they trained. They were prepared to jump into action following any problems. Fortunately, after experiencing the retaliation force, Han Yu and Zhu Feng understood that any crazy actions were useless. Hence, they did not secretly attack during this period of time. Around 1 month slowly passed in this place amid this dull training. The Bodhisattva ancient tree did not show any activity during this 1 month. Xiao Yan, who had remained seated inside, was just like a mosquito frozen in an amber. He did not move, and even his aura had disappeared from everyone's senses. Sometimes, even Xu and Er's group would feel panic in their hearts. Fortunately, they still retained their rational thoughts and did not do anything because of this panic. Although they retained their sense of reasoning, others were uneasy and began to go crazy with the flow of time. After all, no one was willing to be trapped in this place forever. If that was the case, what difference was there between them and a prisoner? This irritation continued for 7 days before some people were finally unable to endure the madness in their hearts. These people's eyes turned red, and they prepared to fight with the Bodhisattva ancient tree when the human figure seated inside it finally shook. Those eyes, which had been shut for a month, were slowly opened in front of many shocked gazes. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible.